Okay, so this is part 2 of the 71 Trac 14. I'm just going to walk through a little bit on the stuff I painted last night. So last time I had the camera on, I was just about ready to paint this stuff. So I got everything, of course, painted. The only thing I kind of messed up on was this starter generator cover. I didn't get quite enough paint on it, as you can see there. But I'll just redo that the next time I have the blue paint out. That's no big deal. So, flywheel shroud, dash, hitch plate, seat springs, starter generator cover, more deck hanger. This is actually a new piece that had to be made for right here. So, it's just a thin metal. It's about as thick as like a hood for fenders. About as thick as this original cover that goes right there. So, it's about as thick as that because it really don't do anything. So that should be good. Front frame turned out pretty good. You can see here. Of course, that's not a good example because that's kind of rusty right there. So let's go over here. Here we go. So you can see this is, of course, paint that I just painted. And then this is the factory paint. You can see, of course, it's still kind of rusty. You can see that it blends together. And then, of course, from the catalog picture, this is the color the paint was, just from the picture of the catalog. So, I think this is actually the color it was originally back in the day. And I really like it. Just look at how shiny that fender is. There's so much metallic in this paint. I really like it. And these floorboards, I know they're extremely ugly, but from the side, they're not too bad. Because that black tread stuff, I'm actually going to put all the way to the edge to cover this up. You can see all this rust on there, and then of course that gigantic patch. This one's even worse. So I had a hard time getting floorboards for this, and these are actually just some pieces of junk ones that I had because I was kind of desperate for some floorboards. And on these hydros, the fender actually will come something like that. It actually goes over the floorboard a little bit instead of next to it like it should, because they're not the right floorboards. And since the floorboards are specific to the hydros, it was extremely hard, actually impossible, to find the right ones. And this tractor came with just the short floorboards that stopped right here, and it's supposed to have the big ones. So I just did what I could do, and hopefully it looks good. So I've actually been asked quite a bit on what paint gun I use. So this is the Finish Line by Devil Biss. It's very good. It was very expensive, like $350 or something like that. Very well worth the money. A lot of people use Harbor Freight sprayers, and yeah, I wouldn't go there on that one. Side frames turned out pretty good. So I've actually did a video in the shop yesterday on working on some stuff, so that is what I'm going to switch to right now. Okay, so here we are in the shop. I've done a bunch of things on stuff for both machines. Painted the engine for the hydro. Painted the transmission for the hydro. So the engine got painted in some high heat paint that's also like gas and oil resistant. It's just like a dull black, but good enough. You don't really see it, and it's an engine, so it'll look good. Transmission got painted in like a glossy black. Just a rattle can. Should be good enough. It was all like 4 or 5 different colors, just like the rest of the tractor was. So normally I don't paint transmissions other than just the axles, but since it was so many colors, I had to do something. The Onan for the 500,000 SS16, the one valve actually had a chunk missing out of it, and it was just too far gone. So I went upstairs and grabbed a parts Onan. As you can tell, there is not a whole lot left of it anymore. And pulled this valve out of it. I just need 2 people to put it in, so I'm just waiting for some help with that. I cleaned up the points cover, the points themselves, and I actually had to make a new gasket for the points because my $5 gasket kit didn't come with that. So I already used the head gaskets out of this kit. This engine doesn't actually need head gaskets. They're in good shape. You can actually get basically complete gasket kits for Onans for like $5. It includes the intake, exhaust gaskets, gaskets for these valve spring covers, head gaskets, all the gaskets that's probably going to wear out. Just doesn't include the crankcase ones, which kind of sucks, but I mean, for $5, I mean, what do you expect? What does kind of suck is the muffler bolt is busted off, so that kind of sucks. Intake bolt is busted off, and it gets better. There is not one bolt broken off a head bolt, but there's two. So yeah, that'll be fun. The exhaust one I'm gonna just leave as is and not worry about fixing, because the new exhaust is gonna get the pipes will thread right in. Oh, maybe not. These threads look like they're kind of messed up. Well, either way, I'm hoping I can thread something in there and figure it out. Let's see. A bunch of tie rod stuff painted. I went in the backyard and grabbed off of my twin cylinder 16.6 that's waiting for restoration this cover, so I guess it'll just be missing on that one. And I wire wheeled it, and surprisingly most of the metal stayed when I wire wheeled it. Bottom corner is missing. These always just get super rusty, so I ran out of silver paint right there, so I'll get some more. I rebuilt and cleaned the carburetor for the Onan, so that's good to go. I actually had to take two carburetors and put together to make one. Let's see, I think that is about it there. I've got a bunch of other stuff here I wanted to show you that I painted. So of course the floorboards for the 500,000, I just did it in black. The air cleaner, here's the bottom of it. And then of course all of the rest of the parts for both machines right there. So that was just a bunch of parts that I got painted. I'm going to come back when I make some more progress on stuff, which I'm not exactly sure yet what that's going to be. But I will come back when I get something else done. And I also repaired the steering wheel for the Hydro. So this steering wheel, when I got it, it was actually busted off right where the two plastic pieces there you see. Somebody actually cut it up and kind of destroyed it. I wasn't just going to not use a perfectly fine steering wheel that was perfect otherwise. So I got this like steel thing that's like round, I guess. And just a couple of nuts, and then welded all that together. Welded that to the two metal pieces. Of course, I bent the plastic out of the way so it can get welded. And then I bent this piece of aluminum around it and put a couple self-tapping screws on each side. And then put some zip ties to help hold the plastic in place. And then now I got a halfway okay looking steering wheel. Okay, as you can see, I got the Trac 14 parts for the most part in the shop. There's a bunch of them actually outside them two doors there, spread out through everything, is where the rest of the parts are. So something I thought, I'll shut this AC off so you guys can hear me better. There, that's more like it. So the steering column on the 500,000, if you noticed, this is chopped off right there, and there's actually supposed to be a bushing right there at the end, right where it's cut. So the tricky thing with that is I do have actually some more parts of this. So I have basically the part that got cut off. So someone else, because the 500,000, it's actually going to get the rear frame off of the SS14 that the front end is going on that Hydro. So, because the rear frame off of this original SS16 was very rusty right around here. And this area up here was very rusty also. So I decided to just swap the frame out, so the nicest tractor I have has a nice frame. So anyway, so this actually has to get cut, because whoever cut this cut it very uneven. Has to get cut just right, and then this has to get cut even. This has to get welded on the top of that to repair it. And then the welds has to get ground down so that they're just about not there at all. So the dash will fit over it. And then the really tricky part is the steering column. Since whoever cut this, cut the steering column with the steering shaft, of course, in it. And here is the rest of the steering shaft. So that means The amount of steering shaft I have to add on is about as long as this, because this top piece here I'm touching with my finger is the steering wheel, and then this is of course the little rubber piece, and then the steering shaft is a little bit beyond that. So the tricky part, set this back down. Tricky part then is I actually have to cut some more of the steering shaft off. So then that way the weld is below this bushing, if that makes any sense. So what I've did, because I've done this before, you put the bushing that goes on the bottom, so the bushing that goes in right here, on the steering shaft already. It's so much work fixing what other people messed up. So you put that bushing for the bottom on, cut the steering shaft somewhere around here, and then this is actually a drive shaft off of a Aaron's garden tractor of some kind. This would connect to a Kohler engine, and then that end would connect to the transmission. Anyway, this happens to be the exact same diameter as the original Sears steering shaft. So this would get cut someplace here in the middle, and then that can get welded on there, and then ground down and pretty good so it fits in the steering column. And then the top will get cut off to the correct length, and then basically slide it in and my steering will be fixed. So, a little complicated, but definitely fixable. Takes a lot of time trying to fix what other people messed up, you know. So, anyway, back to the hydro. I was just trying to figure out how exactly to put the transmission into the frame, because I've never done this before with this model or this style of hydro. So I think what I'm going to want to do is basically bolt the hitch plate to the axle and then bolt it to the frame, or slide the whole thing into the frame, because the axle bolts onto the bolt hole here and there, and then it also bolts here, and that's all that holds it. So I think if I bolted this hitch plate on first and then slid the whole frame over on top of it, and then kind of tipped the whole thing up like this, or raised it up on the forklift, then reached underneath and then hooked up all the linkage and stuff. I think that's what I'll do. Anyway, I'm actually got to wait a while because this isn't even painted 24 hours ago. So I'm going to take a break for a while, get some other stuff done, and come back once as I get that put together. Okay, so a little bit later, the same day that I just did the last part of the video, I decided to start putting it together anyway because I couldn't wait. So, on how you actually put these together is, this is the easiest tractor I've ever put back together. It was the simplest taken apart, and it was very easy putting it back together. So first thing I did, I bolted the hitch plate to the axle, which is a bolt like this on this side, one on the other side. And then ignore that they're rusty, you don't see them once as it's together. But there's this bolt and that bolt, that's all that holds the transmission to the frame. And then basically I set the hitch plate, or bolted the hitch plate onto the transmission, and then I just brought this frame over and set that on top. And then these two bolts on each side, believe it or not, just thread directly into the hitch plate. Like, you don't have to reach around and try to feel for any kind of a nut or anything, because there is actually a nut welded to the inside of the frame. So that was very easy. And then after that, I just popped on the seat springs. So I'm gonna next get the front end of the frame put on, and then put a few more things on, and then I'll come back to you once as I get that done. Okay, so you can see what I got done on it. I got a lot done. The hood, dash, and steering wheel are just sitting on there. I just wanted to see what it looked like. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it right now, so I'm just gonna walk around, and then that'll be about it for this video. In the next video, I will have this thing actually running and driving and actually be done. Forward and reverse levers hooked up, and actually seems to work too. So that's kind of cool. I actually found the hood riser, because these SS14s and SS15s, you gotta have a little riser for the grill. I actually was able to find that. I put the tread plate or tread stuff on the floorboards. I'll probably end up painting that yellow strip black because it looks kind of funny. But yeah, that is going to be it for this video. The next video, I'm going to actually have it up running and driving. I'll probably have to work on it a little bit I'll show a little bit more of me working on it in that video, and then it'll be done. So yeah, thanks for watching.